Next on the news on this Ash Wednesday.
Maybe it's the pandemic, or maybe it's the war in Ukraine, but now is the time to get rid of the stuff that weighs us down. That's the Lenten message Bishop Robert Brennan is delivering to Catholics in the Diocese of Brooklyn. I'm Jessica Easthope. That story's ahead.
Russia's relentless attacks. We've got the very latest developments in Ukraine, plus worldwide condemnation for Russia, including a UN demand for a complete withdrawal. Also ahead, goodbye masks, hello smiles. The mandate ends for kids in the Diocese of Brooklyn Catholic schools.
I know God has a good plan for me.
Plus the amazing achievement for this high school senior that has her filled with gratitude. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now.
Repent and believe in the gospel.
The Lenten season has begun, and Catholics in the Diocese of Brooklyn are once again receiving ashes on their foreheads after pandemic restrictions prevented it last year. And it's the first for Bishop Robert Brennan in his new home. He marked the beginning of the Lenten season by giving Catholics some practical advice on how they can get the most out of the next 40 days. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has more from downtown Brooklyn.
Lent isn't just about giving something up. It's about giving yourself up to God. That's what Bishop Robert Brennan is hoping Catholics in the Diocese of Brooklyn remember this Lenten season. In the midst of pandemic and war, Catholics are starting the spiritual journey of Lent relieved that some things, like where we receive ashes,
Repent and believe in the gospel,
are back to normal.
No comparison. It's just these practices are part of what make us strong as Christians.
Though people were rejoicing over the difference a year can make, the pandemic still weighed heavy on their minds. Edwin Badillo lost his brother to COVID-19 and says he's anxious to move past it.
I asked to remove this because it's just, I'm tired of this thing. So, thank God that we got through this.
But in addition to the pandemic, this Ash Wednesday, people offered up their prayers for others.
I think the worst is over as far as COVID, but Ukraine is another story.
The people suffering in war-torn Ukraine.
Make it an intentional act of prayer and fasting, praying for peace in our world, and right now particularly peace in Ukraine.
We need to give them our prayers and our support in any way that we can.
Others said their prayers are for those suffering right here in our own city.
The rising crime in the city is just back like in the late 70s, early 80s. It's really insane.
But Bishop Robert Brennan gave parishioners some advice to use Lent as a time to get rid of the things weighing us down.
Now is the acceptable time. Now is the day of salvation.
People here at the Cathedral Basilica of St. James say they're praying that over the next 40 days, both the pandemic and the war in Ukraine will be in the past so they can look toward Christ's resurrection with hope. In downtown Brooklyn, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Bishop Brennan spent Ash Wednesday morning with the students and staff of Cristo Rey High School in East Flatbush. The Bishop of Brooklyn distributing ashes to the teens and giving them a task for the 40 days of Lent: read a bit of the gospel every day. Bishop Brennan also visited some of the students in the school's library and talked to them about their internships and college choices. As we begin this season of preparation for Easter, Bishop Brennan would also like to send you all a Lenten message.
St. Paul tells us in our scripture reading today, "Behold, now is the acceptable time. Now is the day of salvation." Yes, indeed, God gives us on this day, Ash Wednesday, a time, a privileged time, a time of grace and renewal and reconciliation. God very much wants to deepen his relationship with you. He wants to show you the depths of his love. And so, after all that we've been through these last couple of years, I want to extend to you a personal invitation. Hear the call of the Lord. Come to Mass. Pray a little bit extra. Go out of your way, perhaps, to make conscious choices to do good things for other people. Behold, now is the acceptable time. Now is the day of salvation.
To help deepen your relationship with Christ this Lent, the Diocese of Brooklyn has a list of prayers and reflections listed on its website. Just go to dioceseofbrooklyn.org for more information. Catholic school students in Brooklyn and Queens won't have to give up masks for Lent. The diocese officially lifted the mandate Wednesday. Kids were mask-free in class for the first time in years. That decision comes after Governor Kathy Hochul lifted the mandate for New York State. Students and staff will now have the choice of whether to mask up, and those who decide to keep the coverings can still do so. We spoke to the Diocese of Brooklyn Superintendent Thomas Chadzuko and Vicar for Schools Monsignor David Casado about how the diocese is handling the new optional mask policy.
I think we need to use this as a teachable moment to say that there are some of you who might want to wear a mask, and that's fine. There's some of you who don't want to wear a mask, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, the teachable lesson here is that we want to keep everybody safe.
It's almost like Ash Wednesday is like Liberation Day. So today at church, the kids were in the church with their masks on, some and others without. So I said, it's your choice. You know, it's great to be able to say you don't have to wear the mask.
Students in city-funded pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 programs must continue to wear masks as required by the Department of Education. In a letter going out to all parents of students, the diocese says it will continue to adapt to COVID-19 mitigation strategies, but its first concern is the safety of all students, and so it will continue other health practices in classrooms, including physical distancing, hand washing, ventilation, cleaning, and disinfection. Plus, it will continue to urge students and employees to stay home when sick and to get tested. Pope Francis is asking the faithful to use Ash Wednesday as a day of prayer and fasting for peace in Ukraine.
I believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty, maker of heaven and earth.
The Holy Rosary was prayed in the Diocese of Metuchen in New Jersey for Ukraine. During his general audience, the Holy Father made an appeal for peace, saying the threat of war has caused great pain in my heart. Some intelligence reports say Russia is planning airstrikes on the Cathedral of St. Sophia in Kyiv. The cathedral is holy to all Slavic people and is a UNESCO heritage site. Archbishop Sviatoslav Shevchuk, the head of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, called on Christians to pray for the cathedral and called upon Russia to refrain from this most horrific act of vandalism. Russia's onslaught against Ukraine rages in multiple cities, many under siege from several sides. As the fighting intensifies, Ukraine is begging the West for help in the form of aerial support or with boots on the ground. Meanwhile, a second round of talks between Russia and Ukraine is expected to take place today. Chris Wynn is in Washington with all the latest developments.
Anguish and devastation as Russia expands its assault on key Ukrainian cities. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky pleading for more international assistance, but staying resilient.
We've hardly slept for 7 nights. Or we sleep, but anxiously.
Ukraine's state emergency service says more than 2,000 Ukrainian civilians have so far been killed during the ongoing Russian invasion. More than 800,000 refugees have fled the country, according to the United Nations.
We've seen videos of Russian forces moving exceptionally lethal weaponry into Ukraine, which has no place on the battlefield. That includes cluster munitions and vacuum bombs, which are banned under the Geneva Convention.
Across Ukraine, scenes of heroism as residents try to defend their country. This video showing hundreds of people blocking Russian forces from accessing a nuclear power plant in southeastern Ukraine.
They will destroy us. And we are saying that we are ready to fight. Just keep helping us protect to hit Russian missiles, which are destroying our hospitals and our kindergartens, our schools, and protect the sky.
As the U.S. looks for more ways to punish Russia, President Joe Biden reiterated that sanctioning Russian oil exports remained a possibility.
Nothing is off the table.
Chris Wynn, Currents News.
So far, Russia has launched more than 450 missile strikes in Ukraine. This map shows where Russian forces are in Ukraine. The areas shaded in red are where Putin's military is now in control of territories within the sovereign nation. The arrows indicate Russian troop movements. Military experts say they expect the war to become more destructive and deadly as Russia turns to heavy artillery. The Russian invasion is not just hitting close to home for people in Kyiv. People living in Lviv, in the western part of Ukraine, fear Russian forces may end up at their doorstep. Susan Ormiston is there and shows us what residents are doing to protect themselves from attack.
In the city of Lviv, in western Ukraine, hundreds of kilometers from the worst of the Russian attacks, they're getting ready. Look at this. This is a neighborhood. High-rise apartment buildings all around here, just on the outskirts of the city. And here's what they've built all day, filling these bags with sand donated by the army. They've posted this Ukrainian flag as if there's any doubt of their pride or allegiance. They've taken some instruction from the military about how to make this barricade strong enough to repel any attack. And over here, there's an interesting list. Things to watch for, cars with license plates, here they are, given by the police saying these are Russian sympathizers. If you see them, don't let them in and make sure you call police. Over here is sort of a command post built up by this guy right here. Here they've got openings to look out, expecting that they may have to be on guard for whatever happens next. They don't know if the Russian attack will come here to Lviv, but they can't afford not to be ready. We spoke to a 23-year-old who lives in this apartment block with his two brothers, a sister, and his parents. This is what he can do to make his community safe.
That was Susan Ormiston reporting. Lviv is the 6th largest city in Ukraine with a population of over 700,000. In the wake of the Russian invasion, President Biden and other world leaders have agreed to release up to 60 million barrels of crude oil to stem the rise in gas prices. 30 million barrels will come from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The other half will come from Europe and Asia. Before sanctions, Russia was the #2 producer of oil. U.S. gas prices are up, reaching highs not seen in 7 years. On Tuesday, the average cost for a gallon of gas was $3.62, 9 cents more than a week ago. There's a lot more news headed your way. Stories of survival from refugees fleeing Ukraine, along with stories of discrimination from some. Plus,
the United States and our allies will defend every inch of territory that is NATO territory with the full force of our collective power. Every single inch.
President Biden's promise during his first State of the Union. He also spoke on Roe v. Wade. Then the president's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, gets a high-profile endorsement. Caritas in Ukraine and Poland are scrambling to help the hundreds of thousands of refugees escaping the war. The organization says in Kyiv there are small windows where they can go out to buy the supplies they need for the mostly women and children they're taking care of. They say there is a shortage of everything. However, in Poland, volunteers are making sandwiches and collecting other food items, then delivering them to different border crossings. Temporary shelters have also been set up. Pope Francis is thanking Poland for welcoming the refugees escaping the violence. At his general audience, the Holy Father said the country is generously offering everything necessary so the refugees can live in dignity. Francis said he's deeply grateful to the people of Poland and he blesses them from his heart. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians have already crossed the border into Poland, but while some are sharing stories of survival, others are sharing stories of discrimination. Sarah Sidner has more.
It's only women and children come along after 3 days in the cold.
In Poland, hope and heartbreak are everywhere as refugees pack into the country. Olga fled the country with her 9-year-old daughter, Angelina. Olga had to leave her husband behind so he could fight with whatever he could find.
It's so difficult. I cannot tell you how it's difficult, this feeling. Feeling that you lose your life, you know. And here, I really don't know what to do.
She is still shell-shocked. but at least has friends to take her in.
We heard the bombs, it's like explosion, yes. And of course we watched the news and we watched that Russian soldiers are there in Kiev, in Kharkov, in Odessa, in Nikolaev, and we saw tanks, yes, and it was panic.
As night falls in the bitter cold, more heartbreak. But the Polish people are offering refugees a warm welcome, warm clothes, a warm place to stay, a warm meal, even diapers and toys for children. A grassroots effort smack in the middle of a supermarket parking lot, just a few kilometers from the border. At the nearest Polish train station, refugees stuff themselves inside looking for help. Many get just that, but not everyone is treated equally. This Cameroonian woman doesn't want any more trouble, so she hides her face. In Ukraine, she says she was shoved from the free train while trying to escape with her child, while white Ukrainians were helped up. And black men, she says, were treated worse.
All the black guys, no. There was one inside the train. They went inside the train and I showed him gun. Walk out.
They put a gun to a black man's face.
I said, walk out. And he walked out because he was scared of gun.
So you're telling me that there is discrimination by the Ukrainians against
Seriously,
black people?
discrimination on the black people entering the train, the free train. They help their people. They do not want to help blacks.
She says discrimination was rearing its ugly head at the most terrifying moment.
That was Sarah Sidner reporting. Help for the refugees is also coming from the Knights of Columbus, the Polish branch of the Catholic fraternal organization, delivering boxes and boxes of necessary supplies to the Archdiocese of Lviv Tuesday. On top of that, the Knights are also providing shelter for the refugees. It's part of the ongoing help coming from the strong right arm of the church. They started a solidarity fund where 100% of the proceeds will go to displaced people. The Knights are also matching every dollar up to $500,000. To donate to the Knights Fund or to find other organizations who are trying to help the people of Ukraine, just go to thetablet.org/where-to-give to help Ukraine. On Tuesday, dozens of lawmakers wrote to the president urging him to use all available pathways under the law to protect Ukrainians already in the U.S. on temporary visas. They also asked if the Homeland Security could provide temporary protected status, or TPS, to Ukrainians, a legal status that can apply to people from countries facing armed conflicts. And while it's only temporary, lawmakers believe it'll offer solace to those worried about having to return to Ukraine. The letter came as President Biden made his first State of the Union address to the country. In it, he had this to say to Ukrainian Americans.
We stand with you. Putin may circle Kyiv with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people. He'll never extinguish their love of freedom, and he will never weaken the resolve of the free world.
And it wasn't just the president showing support for Ukraine. Nearly the entire audience was sporting blue and yellow, waving Ukrainian flags in solidarity for the Eastern European nation. While the spotlight was on Ukraine during the president's address, he also spoke about abortion, saying the controversial Roe v. Wade decision should be a constitutional right.
If you want to go forward, not backwards, we must protect access to health care, preserve a woman's right to choose, and continue to advance maternal health care for all Americans.
This as the Supreme Court is poised to decide the fate of the 1973 decision. In June, the High Court will vote on Mississippi's 15-week abortion ban. If the justices side with the state, they would ultimately overturn Roe v. Wade. Despite announcing his retirement, Justice Stephen Breyer will still vote on the Mississippi case. In the meantime, Biden's nominee to replace the outgoing justice has been taking the first steps in her confirmation process. As Amy Kiley reports, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson already got a high-profile endorsement ahead of her Senate meetings.
I've nominated the Circuit Court of Appeals Ketanji Brown Jackson, one of our nation's top legal minds.
That's President Joe Biden using his State of the Union address to plug his historic U.S. Supreme Court nominee. Jackson will have a chance to speak for herself when she meets with 4 top senators. The 2 Republicans might need some persuading.
I'm troubled by the combination of this slim appellate record and the intensity of Judge Jackson's far-left dark money fan club.
We're not going to get down in the gutter like they did with Kavanaugh.
The two Democrats Jackson is meeting are already voicing support.
She has issued 500 separate legal opinions. Her record is pretty well known, enough so that we confirmed her for the D.C. Circuit Court just a few months ago.
In choosing Judge Jackson, President Biden has hit a home run.
The White House says Jackson will talk with any other senators who'd like to meet with her. Mitt Romney is taking her up on that offer.
Like anyone nominated by the President of the United States, she deserves a very careful look, a very deep dive.
Senator Lindsey Graham says he might not meet with Jackson. He calls her, quote, the preferred candidate of the radical left. Jackson has to win over at least 50 U.S. senators to be confirmed. If she can, the nation's first black woman on the U.S. Supreme Court might be attending next year's State of the Union speech. I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
Still to come on Currents News, their faith never wavered. Now a Bronx church damaged by fire is restored and welcoming the faithful for Ash Wednesday.
God has like a good plan for me.
The amazing reason this high school senior is so grateful for her future. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Rising from the ashes this Ash Wednesday, St. Helena's Parish in the Bronx holding their first liturgy in the church after a 6-alarm fire there.
God bless you all. Thank you for our first Mass back in the church.
The normal Ash Wednesday traditions also accompanied by a blessing of the church's altar, shrines, and pews. Back in December, flames ripped through St. Helena's sacristy, causing extensive damage. Now that their church is up and running again, the Bronx Parish isn't slowing down. They've already scheduled multiple masses Wednesday and this Sunday, as well as Stations of the Cross on Friday. In Minnesota, Mass was celebrated on ice. The College of St. Benedict and St. John's University holding the liturgy on a frozen Lake Sagatagan in Collegeville. This is the second year in a row the school has celebrated the ice Mass. According to the executive director of campus ministry, the event takes a lot of labor, setup, and cleanup to make it happen. Wow. A high school senior in Atlanta has faith that God has a good plan for her future. Taylor Edwards has been accepted at 21 colleges, and so far she's been offered over $1 million in scholarship money. Bernd Peterson has her amazing story.
Taylor Edwards says you can't get somewhere unless you know where you're going.
You have to have your future kind of like planned out in your head, like what you want to do.
What Taylor wants to do is earn a college degree. So far, Clemson University, University of Kentucky, Tennessee, LSU, Pittsburgh, and 17 other top schools have sent her acceptance letters.
She had always had this appetite for learning.
Her mom, Robin, says it all started in pre-K. Today, Taylor is about to graduate from Midtown High in Atlanta. Academic excellence, sports, the arts, she's done it all, which is why so many schools want her and why they've awarded lots of scholarship money.
When she hit the 200,000 mark, we were like, all right. And then it just kept coming.
And coming. Currently at $1,198,320, and we're still in February.
I'm like really excited for these next 4 years. Like I know God has like a good plan for me, and I know that I'm going to be able to like hold myself accountable.
That was Bernd Peterson reporting. Taylor says she plans to go to medical school after earning her undergrad degree. Congrats to her. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.